Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to drink the juice out of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you consider the book Rich Dad Poor Dad as a fruit, then this video is going to be the juice from that book. So I hope you guys find this interesting and useful. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book that came in 1997. It was written by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. Even though this book is more than 20 years old, the contents of this book are considered evergreen, and that is why I think even though some of the concept may not be applicable to everyone in these days, I think overall you will find this information in this book very helpful. So let's get straight to it. The book talks about financial education, building your financial IQ and your financial intelligence, and through this, how do you build wealth and how do you start and grow a business. So what is the importance of starting a business? So the book starts by saying that the fear of society's disapproval is what prevents us from leaving the rat race and growing wealthy. So what exactly is a rat race? One of the definitions of rat race is that it's an endless routine of working for everyone but yourselves. So you do all the hard work while your bosses, the government, and the bill collectors are the ones getting rich and not you. So we all talk about rat race as something that we are a part of, but also as something that we hate. So why do we still continue to be a part of it? Because most people's lives are dominated by the fear of society's disapproval. For example, consider this example. We've been taught this mantra since we were kids. I was taught it. I'm sure you were taught it. Our kids are being taught the same thing, and our parents were also taught the same thing. So go to school, study hard, and get a great job. This is what we've all been taught. But why is this not applicable and it's not a good advice or a good mantra for today's generation? Because in the olden days, our parents, they graduated, got a good job and stayed in that same job for about 30 to 40 years and then retired with a pension. But that's not going to be the case nowadays. I mean, we all work for private companies wherein we don't get pensions after we retire. So we have to take care of our own retirement savings. And people switch jobs. We have the pandemic. People lose jobs. So this same advice cannot be applicable for these days. So even if you do go to a school, get a good job, and graduate and get a good job, you still are going to be comfortable, but you're not going to be wealthy. You're not going to be poor certainly, but the chances of you being wealthy without the required financial knowledge are, it's not going to happen. So we so the important thing here is that you cannot let this old mantra still continue to be the mantra for these days. So then the author goes on to say that the fear and greed can drive financially ignorant people to make irrational decisions. When it comes to money, it doesn't matter whether poor people or rich people, they're controlled by two basic emotions, which is greed and fear. So if you have more money, you want to buy a lot of new things, which is basically greed. And if you don't have money, so you just worry about how you're going to pay your bills, which is fear. So these are the two emotions. People who are ignorant about how to manage their finances let these two emotions, fear and greed, control their financial decisions. So, for example, the author asks us to consider an example, saying that let's assume you got a promotion and a hefty pay raise. So instead of just doing something logical, which is just investing in something like stocks or bonds, there is a possibility that you would want to gratify yourself with buying a new car or a new house. So this is where a financially ignorant person makes a wrong decision because of greed or out of fear. So the fear of losing money is so powerful that it prevents you from investing in stocks. At the same time, greed once inspires you because you want the acceptance of the society. So greed makes you spend the money on a better lifestyle or buy a bigger house, which looks like a safer option, but at the end, a bigger house is just going to be a bigger mortgage and a bigger bill. So this is very important to consider these two emotions to control fear and greed. So how can you counter these powerful emotions? The only way to do this is by improving your financial knowledge about things like investments, risk, and debt. So when you learn about all these stuff, you will be in a better position to make rational decisions wherein you will not be you'll not be making your decisions based on fear and greed. So, despite being vital for both personal and society's prosperity, we as kids from school, we receive no training at all in financial intelligence. So, if you consider the people that became rich, you will see that they have gone through the struggles, but it's not that they don't have the fear, but they manage the fear. which is what is very important. And you can do this only by improving your financial intelligence, is what the author says. So, take our school systems. They teach us science and physics and chemistry, but they don't teach proper financial foundations. So, wherein useful subjects like accounting, compound interest, all this stuff are just not taught in school, which is very important. So because of this, what happens is kids these days are clueless about financial concepts, and as soon as they get a credit card, they just start to max it out. So this is where it's very important to self-educate each and every person, uh, each individual regarding these financial concepts and develop the financial intelligence. So the lack of this training is not just applicable for kids or anybody else. It's applicable for every adult also in these days, because an engineer who might have been a topper in his class might not have the financial knowledge as a person who was in the bottom of that class, or the same engineer in the bottom of the class. So it's very important, no matter where you are in life or what your educational background is, you have to learn the concepts of financial, the foundation. So he wants us to consider an example. For example, take politicians. Politicians run the country. We believe that they are intelligent, and that's why we elect them to run the country. But if you look at all these countries, they're all in debt. The reason for that is because these politicians do not know the concept of financial foundation. So because of this, all countries are in debt. Because of that, the people living in the country are also in debt. So even ordinary people make widely bad decisions when it comes to financial planning. If you take 50% of the population doesn't have any kind of retirement savings. Out of the balance 50%, you could say about 75 to 80% of the people don't have enough of a cushion to have a retirement savings. So financial self-education and a realistic appraisal of your finances are the building blocks of growing wealthy. So in this journey towards financial wealth, it is very important that you start early. Obviously, the earlier you start, the better. If you start at 20, it's always better than starting at 30. But it's at the same time, it's never too late also. So you can start at any time. Regardless of age, the best way to get started is to do a proper appraisal of your finances, setting yourself goals on where you want to be, and then acquiring the necessary education to achieve those goals. So you have to take a honest look at your current financial stage. That's the first step. With your current job, what kind of an income can you realistically expect now and in the future? And at the same time, what kind of expense can you sustainably handle? You may find, for example, the car that you wanted to buy in the next 6 months might not be possible. But at the same time, if you set realistic financial goals with the numbers in front of you, you may say, okay, I cannot, maybe I won't be able to buy this car in the next 6 months, but I can buy the same car in 2 years. So it all depends on how you do a proper evaluation of your current situation. So the next step is, then once you do a proper evaluation, the author says the next step is that you have to develop your financial intelligence. Consider this as an investment into the greatest asset available, which is your mind. So if you can also, I mean, you don't have to go to a school or a college or evening college, even evening college or a community college to learn about finances. You can do it online nowadays. You can do it in your spare time. Every information is available online. I remember Elon Musk recently said in an interview that you don't even have to go to college to learn. Maybe you want to go to college to, develop your social skills or to have fun, but you definitely don't have to go to college to learn, because everything is available on the internet. So to become wealthy, the next thing is, you have to become wealthy, you need to take risks. So they say insanity, the definition of insanity is that you do the same thing over and over again and you expect different results. So if you are living a certain way, if you are spending a certain way, if you are saving a certain way, that's what's going to continue to happen. You're not going to have different results. You're not going to become wealthy overnight. So in order to achieve a goal of becoming wealthy, you need to change your financial pattern. So how do you change it? You need to start handling your finances differently. The biggest change is that you have to learn to take risks, calculated risks. All the rich people, they manage their risk. It's not that they're not afraid. They are afraid, but they manage the fear. So that is what you have to learn also. So taking risk means that you cannot just be balanced in life. I mean, you cannot just say, I will take all this money that I have in savings account, savings that I have, and put it in a checking account or a savings account. That is being safe. You're never going to get rich that way. So instead of playing it safe, you should try investing your money in stocks or bonds. When you do that, even though there is a risk, when you take a calculated risk, if you see the history of the way the market has performed, you will see that you could get rich over a period of time, and in some cases very quickly also, especially when you consider stocks. So at the same time, if you say, no, I would never want to commit myself to the stock market, then you should start learning about other types of investments. So stock market is not the only one there. You have mutual funds, you have ETFs, you have cryptocurrency these days. So you can do your research, educate yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Of course, the higher the potential for return, the higher the risk also. But that is why we say you always have to take calculated risk, because if you don't take any kind of risk in the first place, then there is no guarantee or there is no chance of making any kind of big returns. So it is also important to remember that the road to becoming wealthy is a long process, and it's very important to keep yourself motivated. So it is very easy to lose heart. I mean, maybe you saved for 6 months and invested in a stock, and you see that stock go down 20%, 30%, and there is a possibility that you could go, you could get dejected. You could say, you know what, this is probably not working for me. But you have to understand that you have to consider the history of the stock market and say, you know what, this is just a down. There's always going to be a up. So in order to do that, you have to find ways to keep yourself motivated. So one of the ways to do it is write down the things that you want and don't want. For example, you can say that, you know what, my parents just worked in a company for 30 to 40 years and retired with a decent pension, never wealthy. They were not poor, but at the same time, they were never wealthy. They were just living a normal life, and I don't want to be like my parents. Or you could say that, you know what, I don't want to have any kind of debt in the next 3 to 5 years. So these are realistic goals that you can put down in a list. And every time you feel down, go back and visit this list and see if that will help you stay motivated. And one other way to do it, the author says, is that you could be motivated by spending money on yourself first before you even pay the bills. Like if you get an X amount of salary, first do something for yourself before you even pay the bills. This might sound counterintuitive, but the thing here is that by doing that, by buying something nice for yourself, or by buying something nice for your girlfriend or your family or whatever it is, what you do is you are inspiring yourself to say, you know what, if I spend this amount on myself, on something that I want, I have to balance it out by making more money so that I'll be able to pay bills. So maybe you will come up with creative ways to make more money so that you can balance this out. So it's very important to just not just take all the money and just put it in savings and just say, you know what, I'm not going to spend anything on myself, because something like that is not going to be sustainable for the long term. So you have to take care of yourself first and find the right balance. So, and there's also some other things you could do. You could, when you're feeling down, you could go and read about the people that have become rich by themselves. Like you could take a Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, or people who made it on their own. Not like Donald Trump, where his dad and his family gave him all the money. So you could figure out ways to do that. So when you read about people, you see their struggles, you see the things that they went through, and that will motivate you when you see how they overcome those struggles. So when you put all these tips in practice, definitely over the period of a time, on the longer run, you will definitely, the chances of you becoming wealthy is much more better. And also, two traits. The author says that laziness and arrogance can drive even the financially knowledgeable people to poverty. So it's not just important that you gain this financial knowledge, but you have to stay grounded. You cannot be lazy, you cannot be arrogant. So what exactly is laziness? Just not doing anything? No, that's not just laziness, what the author says. The author says not doing the things that you're supposed to do is also being lazy. What that means is, consider a businessman who works 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. And what that person does is he doesn't go home, he stays in the office all the time, so he doesn't pay attention to his kids, his family, so he loses track of time. So because of this, he's losing his family life, and who knows, he might end up in a very costly divorce. So you don't want to do stuff like that. You want to maintain the proper balance. So arrogance. Why is arrogance, one of the worst traits to have? Because when it comes to finance, you can say arrogance is nothing but ignorance plus ego. You don't have the proper education, but you pretend to have it. So what happens here is, let's say a salesman, a guy who's a stockbroker comes to investment broker, comes to you and gives you suggestions on what kind of a portfolio you should have. But when people like that notice that you have arrogance, they start playing to your ego. So at the end of the day, they only care about the commissions, what they get. So they could easily, play to your ego and divert you into making the wrong decisions. So you have to make sure you stay grounded and make sure that these investment brokers don't become like used car salesmen. So the other important point in this whole book, I would say, the author says you should understand the difference between assets and liabilities. So only invest in assets which put money in your pocket and avoid liabilities which take money out. Quite simply, an asset is something that makes you money and a liability is something that costs you money. So assets include businesses, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, income generating real estate where you get rent, royalty from intellectual property, and anything else that produces income and it appreciates over time and can be sold readily. While when you invest in assets, your dollars become your employees working to create income for you. So your money that you're investing becomes your employee and it starts to multiply. So that is exactly what you want to do. So the more employees you commit to, which is the more money that you have in the market or as an investment, the better. The goal is to set your income high above expenses as possible and then to reinvest the excess income into your assets, employing even more dollars to work for you, even more people, employees, dollars in terms of employees to work for you. So you want to make sure that your income, you have your income, you have your expense. The difference between these two is on the plus and it's higher. So every month, every year, you want to make sure that this keeps growing and you take this growth and you put it back as investment so that keeps growing also. Unfortunately, the problem here he says is that a lot of people, they misunderstand liabilities for assets. For example, a lot of people think they are buying a house, meaning they are buying an asset, but in reality, a house is a liability because for the next 30 years you are stuck paying a huge portion of your income as monthly payment, and at the same time in some countries you have to pay taxes also. So you have to make sure that this doesn't happen. So you have to be in a position where you first invest in assets before you think about buying a house which becomes a liability. So, and very important thing also, he says that your profession pays the bills, but your business is what makes you wealthy. So, your profession is something that you work 40 hours a week, 9 to 5 job, which pays the bills, the groceries, and cover all this living costs. But for this profession, you're usually given a title, a manager or a salesman or a restaurant owner, whatever it is. But your business, on the other hand, is what you invest time and money in to help grow your assets. So by saying that you should start or own your own business, he doesn't mean that you should go and hire 10 employees and hire an office and do all that stuff. All he's saying is invest your time and energy and money into investing and consider that investment as your business. So to achieve wealth, you must build a business while working at your profession, because most of us don't have the luxury of just saying, okay, I made this much money, I'm going to invest this and I'm going to live off that investment. That should not be the case. You should still continue to work to pay your bills, but use your investment to grow your wealth. That is the basic concept. So your profession often funds your business initially. Therefore, it is wise to keep your day job until your business starts to show a sustainable growth. So once that growth starts to happen, then your main income becomes the business and your 9 to 5 job becomes a side business, which at any point after a certain time you will say, you know what, I can afford to quit this if you decide you want to do, if you decide you want to quit and travel the world. So, and also he says that you should understand the tax code. Don't just say, okay, you are in this tax bracket, this is what you have to pay. Don't do that. Educate yourself and see what are the ways that you can reduce paying the tax. So, nothing illegally, of course, legally, but whatever you can do to avoid paying the tax or reduce the amount of tax that you pay. So each country will have a different kind of system, but what the author here says is that corporations have a lot of benefit compared to individuals. So as an individual, when you get paid, they take out the tax first and give you the money that you can spend on yourself or whatever your commitments are. But if you're a corporation, you take the money, you spend the money, you reinvest the money or invest the money, and whatever the balance is left, on that you get taxed. So that is why corporations and companies are rich. So the author says that figure out a way to become a company so that you can reduce the amount of tax that you pay. So this is what the final takeaway from this is. So because we are not trained in financial intelligence in school, it is up to us as individuals to develop these traits by ourselves. We are only likely to become rich or financially independent once we have both a strong financial IQ and a firm, ambitious mindset to support it. In the end, what you invest in your mind is what brings you success, because your mind is the most important asset in any situation. So, um, actionable advice. What can you take from this book or this juice? If you want to start to see results, you have to start right now. Doesn't matter where you are. You are 18 or 25 or 30 or 40 or 50, doesn't matter. You have to start right now. Start making changes to your financial life. So first thing you have to do is make a spreadsheet and track your income and expenses. If you do not do this, you will not know where you are, which is the most important thing that you have to do. Only if you know how much you are making and how much you are spending and what is the leftover, you can come up with a plan for yourself. You will be able to set goals for yourselves. And one of Kiyosaki's main points through this book is that you have to ensure that you have an income greater than your expenses and work on growing these expenses every single day. The only way to do this is to keep track of, like use an Excel sheet or something and keep track of it, because it's not realistically possible to do it the old way, old-fashioned way, like writing down stuff. So you have to keep a computerized operation or an app or something like that, so that you can keep track of each and everything, right from buying a tea or a juice to your monthly mortgage payment or your monthly bills or whatever it is. You have to keep track of each and everything. So what this will help you do is, this will help you decide what you can afford and what are the things that you can afford to cut out of your life, which is the best way to start, which is the first step to wealth generation. And one other thing that the author suggests is that you should introduce yourself to people who are currently doing what you want to do. Like if you see a friend in college, or your somebody who's your colleague is doing something that you want to do, there is no harm, there is no shame in going to them, approaching them, maybe buy them dinner or lunch or beer or whatever is your thing and your colleague's thing, and ask them for advice. Because when you genuinely, honestly ask people for advice, definitely they want to help. So they're not going to think that this guy is trying to take advantage of me. It's not going to be like that. So don't have any kind of shame or don't be shy. Please feel free to reach out to people who you think will be able to contribute to your growth. So I know this video, I think it's been almost 25 minutes. So the important things that I would recommend from this is track your income and your expenses and work on widening the gap between your income and expenses. Do not let fear and greed drive your decision making process, and start your journey towards becoming wealthy today by beginning to educate yourself in various forms of investing. So if you do this for the next, say, 6 months, that will give you a clear plan or an idea onto what the next step is. If you think, you know what, this is just too much stuff, I'm overwhelmed, and you never start, you're never going to get anywhere. So why not start? Why not give it a try and see how things are, say, 3 to 6 months down the road? So I hope you find value from this juice that you just drank, and maybe not all the concept that we discussed here might be helpful to you. So let your body determine what part of the juice, what part of the nutrition from this juice it wants to absorb. So thank you again for your time. I hope you found value, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you again soon with the next video. Bye.